Imagine a king so powerful that no one dared to question him. Yet he lived in constant fear of something we use every single day, water. No, this is not a myth. This king truly believed that if water touched his skin, he would die. And so, he chose filth over fear and superstition over science. For years, his body never felt the touch of water, and his kingdom had to live with the unbearable consequences. Our story takes us back to the late 17th century in France. A time of grand palaces, powdered wigs, and endless luxury. At the center of it all was one of Europe's most famous monarchs, King Louis XIV. He was also known as the Sun King, a ruler so obsessed with power that he built the extravagant Palace of Versailles. Louis wanted control over everything: his court, his image, and even how people spoke. He dictated fashion, manners, and even how people should behave in his presence. He believed that the image of royalty had to be perfect even if the reality was far from it. But behind the golden gates of Versailles was a dirty little secret. Despite being the most powerful man in France, King Louis refused to bathe. He believed water could make him sick or even kill him. And he was not alone in this belief. This fear of bathing was not just a personal quirk. It reflected a wider belief in European society at the time. During this era, many Europeans feared water. They thought it carried diseases and opened the pores, allowing illness to enter the body. Bathing was seen as dangerous, not refreshing. Doctors of the time actually supported this idea, advising people to avoid washing too often. They believed that water could carry miasmas, invisible clouds of disease that floated in the air and could enter the body through wet skin. Louis XIV took this belief to the extreme. He was famous for taking only 3 baths in his entire life, and even those were under pressure. One of those baths reportedly made him feel so ill that he refused to do it again. Instead of water, he relied on perfumes, powders, and scented cloths. He would change clothes multiple times a day to appear clean, even though his body remained untouched by soap and water. Some books claim he changed his shirt up to 6 times a day. The smell in the palace was so terrible that nobles would carry scented handkerchiefs to mask the stench. A visitor once described Versailles as the most splendid and the most stinking place on earth. Even in the presence of royalty, people struggled to stay composed because of the overwhelming odors. Court officials followed the king's example. Bathing was rare, deodorants did not exist, and waste disposal was medieval at best. People would relieve themselves in hallways or even behind curtains. Chamber pots were emptied from balconies, and streets around Versailles often reeked of human waste. Imagine walking through a palace so beautiful yet reeking of filth. The obsession with status blinded them from basic hygiene. Louis believed that staying dry kept him safe. But his choice had horrifying results. His body was often covered in rashes, sores, and skin infections. Some accounts suggest that lice and fleas were a regular part of royal life. Yet no one dared tell him. Not even his personal doctors, who only offered perfumes and powders as treatment. They knew that speaking against the king's habits could cost them their careers or worse. He was the Sun King, and to question him was like questioning the sun itself. One servant once said, "We pretend the king is clean, and in return, he pretends we are healthy." It was a court of illusions. People played along with the fantasy that cleanliness was not important. But behind closed doors, many suffered from preventable illnesses. Children died young, infections spread quickly, and disease was common among even the wealthiest families. The real tragedy? Louis XIV was not mad. He was following the best advice available at the time. Doctors truly believed that water was deadly. Even newborns were not bathed for days. Hospitals rarely had clean conditions, and hand-washing was not part of medical practice. Diseases like smallpox, syphilis, and cholera were rampant, and many thought they came from water. Some believed that dirty skin actually formed a protective barrier against sickness. So, ironically, in trying to protect his health, the king may have worsened it. He developed painful boils and suffered from severe dental problems. When he finally died, it took over 40 minutes just to remove the layers of makeup and perfume from his face. At the same time, public health in France suffered. When your king refuses to bathe, why should anyone else? His superstition became a silent law. Cleanliness became a rare luxury rather than a common practice. Even among the nobles, washing with water was a suspicious activity. Those who did bathe regularly were considered strange or dangerous. It was only in later centuries, with advances in medicine, that people began to understand the importance of hygiene. And that water, clean water, was not the enemy. The discovery of germs and bacteria changed everything. But that change came far too late for the people of Louis's court. The twist? Despite his fear of water, Louis XIV lived to the age of 76. A miracle by the standards of his time. But his legacy smells of irony. He built the most magnificent palace in Europe, but ruled it from under layers of sweat, perfume, and fear. He is remembered as the Sun King, a symbol of beauty and grandeur, yet his personal habits were anything but regal. King Louis XIV was a man of immense power, yet he was powerless against the fears and beliefs of his time. His story teaches us that even kings can be prisoners, not of chains or enemies, but of ignorance. His court followed his every move, even when those moves made no sense. They feared the king more than they feared disease. So the next time you enjoy a hot shower, remember, there was once a king who believed it would kill him. And that belief shaped an entire court, an entire culture, and a very stinky chapter in history. But what would you have done in his place? Would you have dared to take a bath? Or would fear have kept you dry? Let me know in the comments, would you survive this royal nightmare? If this tale surprised you, hit that like button. Subscribe for more forgotten stories from royal history. And share this with someone who loves drama, perfume, and power. Because sometimes history stinks literally.